what are the key behavioral modifications that are going to serve to like be the low-hanging fruit for most people?
Yeah, I think processed foods are the number one culprit, along with soft drinks. Those two common, and maybe beer. Those are the big three that, I mean, I also think French fries and hot bread, but it is really true. And I think that the trouble with processed foods is all the salt and sugar and everything else that they put in it. So it's just and it makes it taste good, and nachos and all these things taste good, but they have a lot of bad stuff, a lot of salt, a lot of bread, or carbs. So if we wanted to make an impact, that's where we can make an impact. And once you realize that the three tastes that are good, the three tastes we like: sweet, salt, and umami, which is for glutamate, and basically is to help you pick foods out that raises uric acid, right? So it turns out that the three tastes we like, we're all tend to select foods that will help an animal survive.
Isn't it wild? Are you familiar with the concept of antagonistic pleiotropy?
No.
I'm such a nerd.
It sounds like a very dangerous thing. I don't want to meet anyone with antagonistic pleiotropy. What will they do to me?
What will they do? Well, let me explain it real quick. I'm such a nerd, but I love this concept. I feel like I've had to explain it a few times on the show, which is like always interesting. But it's basically the concept by which something that is generally helpful to get us to a state of reproductive success and help us survive at one point in our, on our lifespan becomes maladaptive at like another end.
Yes. That's what we would call a thrifty gene.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the same concept. I think that, there was a time when everything was about survival and these tastes were picked, and bitter and sour were picked to try to avoid foods that might be bad. And they got into our system, and now we can get all the foods we want. And so we can eat these foods that are, the processed foods where we put the people add the sugar and the salt. They know we're going to like it. And they can even do it at a sub level. When we knock out sweet taste, mice still love sugar. They don't like artificial sugars, but they still like sugar.
Interesting.
And so, you can, all you have to do is get a little bit of sugar in there, and people are going to want it. By the way, I was looking at Peter Attia's Instagram today, and he said that he did not want to be an ultra crepidarian. And I thought, what the heck is that?
What is that?
And I looked it up, and it's an actual word that means telling more than you know. And it's a really good one when you're a scientist and you're asking, that I don't overextend, but I'm trying not to.
No.
Anyway, but yeah, so. Yeah, this evolutionary ideas, learning from evolution can really help explain a lot of disease. And when you think of Alzheimer's as possibly being a foraging response, so when you forage in the short term and you reduce the energy to the brain short term, you're conserving energy, because the brain uses a lot of energy. You're focusing on just getting the food. It's like a survival benefit. It's good to do that. But if you do that all the time, then the brain can't handle it. The energy levels are low, the ATP levels are low, and eventually the mitochondria can't sustain from the oxidative stress, and they die, and then there's not enough energy to support the neuron, and then it dies, and there's inflammation. And what was meant to be a good thing.
Yeah.
So it's antagonistic pleiotropy. That's the phrase, right?
Yeah, like like our evolutionary past, like flavors that might have tipped off one of our ancestors to a good source of food or whatever, it was and provided a survival advantage at one point in our history. Today has become maladaptive to, counterproductive to good health. So these when fructose production goes up and ATP goes down, inflammation goes up, are these typically transient?
Yeah, so it's transient initially.
It's initially transient.
Yeah. If I get you, and you can measure it in people with an NMR, like if I give you a soft drink, at 30 minutes, your ATP levels are about 40% down, 25, 40% down, and they recover. But every time you do this, you're getting this drop and then recovery, drop and recovery, and then eventually it stays down.
So again and again, so it's not necessarily that like the occasional medium fries that you get are going to drive Alzheimer's disease, but if it's like that's your dietary pattern,
Right?
and it's again and again and again and again,
Yes.
high starch, high glucose, soft
Yes.
drinks.
Yes, absolutely. So yes, exactly. And it was meant, like hibernating animals are they don't get actually it's sort of interesting. Hibernating animals do get a little bit of tau protein while they're hibernating, but it recovers, goes away.
Wow.
And so maybe it's related to this suppression that they're, because they're doing it for several months where they're really eating a lot of fructose, for like 8 weeks. They're doing it and then they get all this fat. So, but they recover. And so, but over time, if you're doing it all the time, you're going to get into trouble. It's going to get you at some point. And some people are going to be more susceptible than others. Those who exercise are going to kind of have countering mechanisms. If you're taking vitamin C, you might be countering it. Vitamin C actually does counter it. I recommend everyone to take vitamin C. It blocks that oxidative stress to some extent.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you have a dose that you can recommend?
Yeah, I would recommend 1 gram a day.
Interesting. Okay.
If you take more, you can increase your risk for kidney stones. So, anyway, but going forward, and so people with very good vascular function, their endothelium are humming. Those guys are going to do fine for a long time. When you're really young, you have such good mitochondrial function. You can drink a soft drink. It's probably not doing much. You can run up and down the beach and look great and drink soft drinks. And so if you're going to do, like, if you're working for the sugar industry and you want to try to show that sugar doesn't cause a problem, you give it to an 18-year-old who's in super shape, super mitochondria, and they're not going to show much. But if you give that same dose to an insulin-resistant, obese, a 42-year-old, you're going to see this.
Yeah.
And it's been done. There's a much greater response of triglycerides and, blood pressure and all those kinds of things. So so a lot of it is, who you are and what stage of life you're in. And, if you've got good, and so the bottom line is, like what Peter Attia is doing and, try to continue to exercise, keep those mitochondria healthy. I mean, I walked an hour, 20 minutes to get here today to talk to you. And I did that because I wanted to have some exercise today. I mean, if I just, walk around and have a glass of wine and eat food and don't do any exercise, it's not going to be good for my mitochondria. So
it's very impressive that you did that. Hey, if you liked that video, you need to check out this one here, and I'll see you there.